Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist and associate professor, faculty of health sciences at the University of Ottawa. He joins us this afternoon on The Drive to talk about contact tracing. Doctor, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Maybe just give us a little lesson here. Really, how important is it, and what exactly is contact tracing?
It's pretty important. It's one of the three pillars of what we call TTI, testing, tracing, and isolation. So if you have an open society, an open economy, and the disease is endemic across it, and you want to be able to stop it from becoming really serious, you want to be able to detect cases and suppress them before they become outbreaks. And you do that by identifying a case, right? Someone gets infected and tests positive, and figuring out who they came into contact with, therefore who they likely infected. And you can catch them, you can test them before they even know they're infected and prevent them from becoming sources of further outbreaks. So it's pretty important. Mm-hmm. I would say it's probably the vanguard of any proactive public health program to stop this pandemic.
Okay, so when our Mayor Nenshi, comes out today and says 2/3 of the COVID cases have no identifiable source, making it extremely difficult to do contact tracing, what does he mean there in layman's terms?
He means that the information is not there to figure out where they got it from. It doesn't mean it came magically from outer space. They got it from somebody. They don't remember where they've been because people's memories are imperfect. I don't remember where I've been in the last week or so. If you took the bus, for example, you don't know the other people who were in the bus with you. You just don't. So this is why technology is important, because we can't rely on our memories. And even if we're relying on our memories, most contact tracing in North America is done by calling up the people that you thought you had contact with and just telling them, hey, got any symptoms? If so, go get tested. So it relies a lot on, people's abilities and their responsibility.
So how do we get better at contact tracing?
Now, some places have clever things. They've got QR codes in front of buses and transit systems, and Asia in front of every business. And before you get on, you've got to scan that QR code and create an electronic log of everyone who's in there at a given time. Okay. And nobody has access to that log unless someone tests positive, and then suddenly public health can figure out exactly who was there, test them, and exclude cases. So there are ways to do this.
And whether you're in favor of the apps or not, if every single Canadian downloaded it, would that solve our issues for contact tracing?
It wouldn't solve it. It would help a lot. And the reason it wouldn't solve it is the apps are variable in what they offer because of privacy concerns. I mean, if you didn't care about privacy, we just have a tracking app all the time and we know exactly who is in contact with whom. But because we care about privacy, most of the apps use Bluetooth technology that tell you if you were in close proximity to someone who was probably positive. You need about 80% uptake to be a huge game changer, and right now we've got a lot less than that. I think the highest percentage uptake is in Iceland or Singapore with 40%, so no one is doing that. But also, it's the kind of contact tracing we're doing. So in North America, we do forwards contact tracing. That's when you identify a case and you figure out who they likely infected afterwards. In Asia, they do backwards contact tracing. They identify a case and you go backwards in their timeline to figure out which clustering event they attended where they were probably infected and test everybody else who attended that event, like a restaurant or a bar. And doing so, they get a lot more cases.
So that obviously is a more effective way.
I think so, and for this disease in particular, because this disease spreads in a punctuated, dispersed manner, super spreading events. If we can take the super spreading events off the table, you've got a really good chance of controlling this. South Korea never locked down. This is all they do. They test and do a lot of backwards contact tracing, and they monitor their borders. So I believe this is the way to normality if you're willing to invest the time, money, and public compliance to do it.
But how are they doing it in Korea? Like, what makes them so good at it?
A couple of things. One is that they use technology. So they've got apps, sure, but also contact tracers can look at your credit card history, your mobile phone history, your social media feed to figure out where you've been in the past. And also the QR codes are there. So once they figure out which restaurant you're at or which bus you attended, just access those electronic logs and test everyone on that list. And they've got the power to isolate you and quarantine you if you don't get tested in time. So they really prevent the outbreaks from happening. That takes public compliance. A lot of us here aren't willing to divulge that kind of information. So if we were, we could do that.
That is the big issue, isn't it? Because I don't think anybody wants to live in a police state.
I haven't got an answer for you there, except to say if you want an open economy until the vaccine comes, which is 9 months to a year possibly, this is an option. Yeah. Or we do the elimination strategy like Australia and New Zealand. You lock down hard, drive out the cases, and lock down the borders. That's a possibility too. But there are options on the table, and contact tracing as well.
Yeah, well, fair enough. And I guess it's just another reason why we talk about our cohorts and we talk about keeping our bubbles small, because that really is important too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, ultimately, regardless of who you believe in, who you trust, and what you want to do, this is always in the hands of the citizen to make this emergency go away. And you do it by just limiting the number of contacts and exposures. If only you see just your family members, your household members in a given week, well, this goes away in a matter of a few months. But the problem is a lot of people are seeing other people, either intentionally or otherwise. And that is why we have an emergency.
So you're in Ottawa. We're here in Alberta, and Alberta Health Services, they're suffering a severe slowdown right now in contact tracing, and ultimately they're trying to hire more contact tracers, but they're also now putting it on the people that test positive. So if Jock Wilson tests positive, it's up to me. If I'm healthy at home, I've got to contact the people that I know I was in close contact. And how effective is that?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think it's an emergency precaution because we're out of resources. I don't like it because you can't rely on the individual to do it. And let's say this was HIV or a sexually transmitted disease. Can you really trust someone to divulge to someone, hey, I may have given you this embarrassing, shameful thing? For some people, COVID is an embarrassing, shameful thing. And there's a profound social disincentive for people to do this. And we can't rely upon them to do it all the time. So this is a failure of resourcing. And it would be great if we can drive the cases down to a manageable level, deploy extraordinary contact tracing capacity, and then reopen safely. It's possible. Other countries have shown us it's possible.
And that's always going to be an issue, because even if Jock Wilson tests positive, there's no guarantee if I talk to a contact tracer that I'm going to be 100% honest with that contact tracer, because as you say, I may not want to get somebody in a bad situation.
That's right. And also, the contact tracers essentially just phone you up and ask you, do you have symptoms? If not, go get tested and then figure it out. And there's no follow-up to see that you did. Again, the Asian countries, they've got the powers to compel you to quarantine and compel you to get tested, which again is a violation of your civil liberties, sure, but it works.
What else can Canada be doing?
I think we should consider a national strategy of hard suppression and mitigation, if not elimination. And that looks like, unfortunately, hard economic restrictions for 2 to 4 or 5 weeks, possibly drive the case numbers as low as possible, then seal the borders, test everyone who crosses the border, and do a lot of contact tracing. So that way we can have an open economy in our utopian playground while the vaccine achieves herd immunity. Australia did it, so we can do it.
It seems pretty drastic, but hey, you're not alone in your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think we'd be here. I thought that we were doing this back in March. That's how stupid I am. I thought our original lockdown was this plan, and I was pretty surprised when we opened up with no public health assets in play. So this scenario was inevitable. It was foreseeable by most of the experts, so it's a little astounding that we didn't deploy the appropriate public health assets to avoid being here. And we have to pay the price now.
Doctor, a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much for your time. You have a great weekend.